So when I started taking pictures, from like when I was about 15 onward, I handled the camera in a very, in sort of the regular way, which is basically, you sort of look through the viewfinder and you compose and you pay special attention to the borders of your frame, and you try and control all of the things that are, or at least, even if you can't control, at least you try and notice and accept all the things that are coming into your frame, and you snap the picture at what I suppose is the decisive moment.
I was the first one in my family to be diagnosed with myotonic dystrophy. I first noticed it in high school when I was clenching my hands. I couldn't unclench them, and I wasn't sure what was going on, so I talked to my doctor, and she wasn't sure either. So she sent me to a neurologist to diagnose me with myotonic dystrophy, and he told me that it's an incurable genetic disease, and that although it's not necessarily degenerative, it could get worse.
When I started taking pictures in a fairly serious way, this was after I started doing band pictures. Actually, even when I was doing band pictures, I immediately noticed that I became a lot more attracted to pictures that had a sort of a blurry quality to it, or a motion blur quality to it. I wasn't entirely sure why. There was something about them that just seemed to remind me of human consciousness, and just the act of seeing a lot more than something that was very, very sharp.
About how I trust them, I sort of become annoyed at them, as weird as that sounds, when they won't respond, because it seems like something your body should, you're saying unclench, you just think it and it happens, but that doesn't work for me. They don't do what I want.
What I started to do later on, as I was going through school, and I wanted to have more of a random quality enter into the frame, is that I would oftentimes start taking a picture of somebody, and then I would just kind of physically just kind of let it go. I would still kind of visually remain engaged in the person, but I became less and less interested in the composition, not interested in the composition, but
When I was diagnosed with myotonic dystrophy by my neurologist, he sent me to a cardiologist to get a heart trace. So they attach a monitor to your heart, and you can see it go deep, just like you see on the intensive care units in hospital shows. But so mine was okay. It was a bit delayed because the electrical signals were a bit different. They said that was fine. We'll just keep watching it. This past year I went, and it was a bit different. It was beating irregular. It was going dee dee, sort of all over the place. And they diagnosed me with something called atrial flutter, which means one of the atriums of my heart is beating too fast and it's beating irregularly. And so they did some more tests and said, yes, I do have it, and that what I can do is I can take medication for it that helps regulate the speed of my heart, and also they said I couldn't exercise, so I can't run or swim or do any strenuous sports. I can walk, but that's pretty much it. Because if it starts beating too fast, I'd have a heart attack.
You could see the grain of the film a lot more, so it had a bit more of an honesty like that. There was something more dynamic about it. There was something about, it seemed like almost like an in-between moment at the same time. It seemed like you would think a lot more about the process of seeing when you were looking at these pictures, rather than something that was crystal sharp, which to me seemed far too mechanical and not natural at all. It seemed very, very unnatural.
It's frustrating that my heart doesn't work, because it's one of those things, especially at 22, that you think it's just going to work, you can do whatever you want to it, and it's going to be fine, it's that immortality complex. You think of old people having heart attacks, not you, and I guess it's frustrating because I have to think about my heart in a way that I never would have thought about any of my organs. You don't think about each organ individually, but I have to think is my heart going to be okay if I do this? What does this do to my heart?
I was sitting down with my mother and I was showing her some of the pictures, and she asked me what was it about the blurriness that I liked, and I said, I gave her sort of the standard reason, which I just gave you, and then she said, well, have you ever thought that it might have something to do with the fact that for the first 9 years of your life, you were seeing the world through a very blurry eye?
I started taking medication for that. It's supposed to, they gave me medication for that, and told me not to exercise, not do anything strenuous, no running, no swimming, nothing like that. I could walk, that was pretty much it. And told me to stay off stimulants, so caffeine, any other drugs I was taking. And I pretty much ignored all of that.
Okay. When I was born with some vision problems. I was born with a cataract in this eye. Cataract is a piece of film that exists on the back of your eye and prevents you from seeing. Usually happens more often in older people. It's not very common for it to happen in infants, but it did happen to me.
I'd go running and then my chest would hurt and I'd be like, oh, I just thought it was pretty normal. I'd go swimming. I was doing my last year of my undergrad, and so I was drinking a lot of coffee, and sometimes right near the end of the year I was staying up for 3 or 4 days to finish an essay, and I was drinking coffee constantly, and my heart started to really hurt, and that's when I got a little worried about it. That summer I also started doing some cocaine, and that usually speeds up your pulse really fast. So with my heart condition, it's a really bad idea. My friends won't even let me do it anymore, so they cut off all their drug connections to me. And I guess I've decided that it would be really dangerous, but I don't like having a medical condition affect how I do things. I like to exercise. I like to drink coffee and do drugs sometimes. And so...
No, they didn't really notice it in me until 6 or 8 months after I was born, in which case it was promptly removed, but unfortunately my brain didn't have the chance to develop binocular vision, which is the act of, the quality where you can see out of 2 eyes at once and just have one plane of vision. Now one of the things that the doctors recommend that my parents do to me, and subsequently did, was that in order for this eye to kind of build itself up, because I had one very strong eye, which was this one, and one very weak eye, which I just wasn't using very much. And they were worried that if something ever happened to this eye, I would eventually become completely blind, because this eye would just disintegrate. But they said that if I worked this eye until I was about 9 years old, it will probably stay with me for life. So so basically what my parents had me do was wear a patch on this eye for the first 9 years of my life. Not all day, but for at least 7 or 8 hours a day. So I spent a good portion of my life just looking through my very weak eye, which basically looks like you're looking through the bottom of a Coca-Cola bottle. And now when I just see normally, I actually almost always see double. So for example, I'm looking at you through this eye, but if I look for it, I'll also notice that there is a floating, slightly transparent version of you, just kind of hovering off to the upper right of you, which is the sight coming in from this eye. I don't really notice it anymore unless I look for it, but it's always there. And I remember when I first arrived at university, one of my professors was giving a lecture and said that we don't see as a camera does. Say, oh sure, maybe if we put a hand over one of our eyes and walk around like that all day, then we'll see as a camera does. And I thought, maybe I was born to be a photographer in that regard.